All right, a very warm welcome to the YouTube family. We are reading the book Healing is the New High. Let us start. Okay, so which chapter were we at last? We need to find out. I think we did the chapter second. Is it? Alka, can you unmute and remind me?
I think Aarti, we did those we went through all the parts of the bodies and like the body scan part we did last.
Yes, yes. So, yes, how to use this book. Then we started with the chapter 2. Chapter 1 talks about the various kind of bodies that we have. And then in chapter 2, we started with a woman. There was a story of a woman who had some chronic issues and the physical body. We started with the physical body, right? Yes, body scan. Practice 1 is the body scan. Did anyone practice body scan? Okay, try and do that. All right. So we read, when it comes to healing, awareness is the key. You've got to be willing to notice what's going on with you. And it's crucial to develop tools that allow you to focus, become present, and acknowledge how you're doing in this moment. Yeah. So being mindful. We also did this exercise, lying flat and then focusing on each of the body part, your left foot, right foot, your tummy, your hands, your back, going all the way to the face. Yeah. I think we stopped here. We do everything we can to avoid facing our trauma, but it's impossible to wipe it from our history. If we try to do that or pretend to, it will always come back to bite us. Instead, we must work with it, turn it over, look at it differently. Yeah. I think we stopped here.
I guess we stopped at resistance as a clue. We haven't read about that letter which he wrote about his dad, mother.
This one you mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. This one. Resistance is a clue. Chali, over to you, Arya.
Okay.
Can you see the screen clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Resistance is a clue. Any thought, emotion, sensation, or experience that you try to resist or avoid exposes a space inside of you that's calling out to be healed. Within reason, of course, it's normal and healthy to want to avoid objectively awful experiences. The exercise you have just worked through is a simple way to begin noticing that resistance so that you can build a more solid understanding of what you can focus your inner healing energy on at any given moment in time. In other words, you don't need to be scared of the things you feel a strong aversion to. Instead, you can welcome those things as clues and aim to approach them with curiosity rather than fear. You will probably find the shifting your approach in this way takes away their power surprisingly quickly. The client I wrote about earlier in this chapter discovered that her physical pain held important clues that could help heal her emotion pain and she is definitely not alone. In this, in his eye-opening book, The Body Keeps the Score, Dutch psychiatrist Bossel van der Kolk explores the subject in great detail. He says that after going through a traumatic experience, as much as we try to pretend that nothing is happened and get on with our life as normal, the part of our brain that is devoted to ensuring our survival deep below our rational brain is not very good at denial. Long after a traumatic experience is over, it may be reactive, reacted at the slightest hint of danger and mobilize disturbed brain circuits and secrete massive amounts of stress hormones. This precipitates unpleasant emotions, intense physical sensations, and impulsive and aggressive actions. We do everything we can to avoid facing our trauma, but it's impossible to wipe it from our history. If we try to do that or pretend to, it will always come back to bite us. Instead, we must work with it, turn it over, and look at it differently. And gradually, over time, in a messy way that's by no means linear. There will be good days and bad days, and there won't always be any obvious reason why we are suddenly stuck in the depths of reality. A really bad day, we need to come to a kind of acceptance of that trauma as part of our past. There will be healing. In 2019, when my own healing journey was already well underway and I had firmly established my own practice of choosing curiosity over fear, I did something that would not have been possible for me when I was younger. I remember the date because it felt huge. March 31st, Mother's Day in the UK. I made an Instagram post sharing some of the struggles and trauma I went through with my family when I was a child. This trauma runs deeper than the breakup I told you about earlier. It had shaped who I was and still am. And it had taken years and incredibly hard work for me to begin to accept that my childhood self, my inner child, deserved to speak out and be free. In the post, I wrote about life after my father's death. When I was very young, I wrote about my mother, the greatest strength in my life, and how she struggled to settle into a new country and a new language on her own with us kids. I wrote about the abusive in laws we lived with, who pushed his pain on us, sometimes violently, and I shared with the world how we had feared of our lives, faced racist abuse, been homeless and lost and gone hungry. We do everything we can to avoid facing our trauma, but it's impossible to wipe it from our history. If we try to do that or pretend to, it will always come back to bite us. Instead, we must work with it, turn it over, and look at it differently. We were outsiders, and I carried sadness and fear with me for years as a result of everything we had endured. The intensity of those emotions would come out whenever I felt as if I didn't fit in, or as though I was being rejected. I had feel in my gut, in my heart, in the stiffness that sank into my joints, and in my body's unwillingness to stand tall and broad and take the big, confident steps that I saw wanted to take. However, by the time I made that post, I had also realized that I carry something else from that time, something even more powerful, the strength, faith, and perseverance that my mother demonstrated to us every single day, and which even I demonstrated to myself by simply surviving. Because when I acknowledged and what I had been through and what I had moved past, it was impossible not to acknowledge that I was also strong and that I had grown from something solid. Even though our lives were unstable, our hearts were not. Trauma never gives you only one thing. If you look closely, there is always evidence of a truth beneath the lies that your pain want you to believe. Because you have survived, you are a survivor. You can use your body to start the process of accepting emotional pain that stems from the early years of your life. Your body is a tool that's with you all the time. If you just learn how to use it, moving your body in certain ways can kickstart the process of inner healing, giving you an opportunity to go back to a time before you were hurt and to feel into your physicality as if it were new, and as if the possibility of your life were untamed, blank, and wide open, which is a kind of truth in itself because the possibilities of your life are wide open. John Stirk, a prominent UK yoga teacher, has for years dedicated himself to studying the way people move and why. When I read his book, The Original Body, I was inspired by the idea of moving our bodies as if we have never moved them before. If you were completely new to the world, how would you experiment with this body you were born with? What would your muscle do? Where would your eyes glance? The way we chose to move and the decisions we make about how to use our bodies and how to change, or at least momentarily interrupt movement patterns we have stuck to for years, has a powerful impact on the way we feel. Moving your body is a new way can allow your mind to move in a new way. That's what I had like you to try now.
All right. If you are tired, I can take it ahead. Yeah.
No.
Is that okay if I take this ahead from here?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Okay. I'm audible.
Yes.
Practice 2. Move, shift your energy, and make space for your potential. For this exercise, you need to feel comfortable in your surroundings. You don't require much physical space, but you do need head space. That means no interruptions. No worry in the back of your mind that someone might walk through the door any minute and ask what you're doing, because you need to feel unself conscious and able to, well, be a bit weird basically. We are going to work with the body as if it were new. Later, we'll go deeper into connecting with what's known as the inner child and reparenting to create new neurological pathways and release this unconscious limiting beliefs about yourself that are holding you back. This physical practice lays the groundwork for that, establishing a new perspective in the physical body. And you know what? This might feel really strange. It might be uncomfortable for you, and you might feel strong resistance to it. All of that's okay. It is a bit strange. However, you don't have to believe in it right away for it to work. It's a practice, it uses the physical body. And even if you don't immediately experience any noticeable effects, it is working and you are doing it right. The truth is, self healing is chaotic. Sure, there'll be minutes, days, weeks, even months when you will feel a kind of joy, harmony, and your progress will be obvious. But for much of the time, healing feels icky. Sometimes it hurts a lot because it has to be. Be patient with your emotional wounds. Expand and sense. When you've decided on your quiet, undisturbed place and you know you have 10-15 minutes of peaceful alone time, you can get into this. Keeping your eyes closed until step 8 will improve the effectiveness of the exercise. However, if you feel uncomfortable with your eyes closed, then try softening your focus instead, perhaps by gazing at the floor or some other neutral point. Number 1. Sit with your back against a wall, your knees pulled into your chest and your feet flat into the floor. Cross your arms around your legs and ball your hands into fists. Rest your head on or near your knees. If this feels uncomfortable or impossible, try placing a cushion on top of your knees and resting your head on that. Number 2, close your eyes. Notice the breath. Don't try to change it or control it. Just notice the breath. Each inhale and each exhale. Notice the length of the breath, the depth of the breath. Allow it to be as it is. Number 3, as you continue to rest here, notice these 3 points in the body: the forehead, the center of the chest, and the lower abdomen. Imagine that each of these 3 points is becoming softer and warmer and relaxed. Number 4, take your time. And when you're ready, very, very slowly begin to lift your head away from your knees. So slowly, as if you've never lifted your head before and you're not sure how it works. You've never felt the muscles in your neck working or experienced the sensation of air on the skin of your face. Keep the eyes closed, keep lifting the head until it's balanced comfortably over the neck. Number 5. Next, and still with the eyes closed, begin to move the arms incredibly slowly. Again, it's as if you've never moved your arms before. They unfurl, uncross, and reach straight up over your head. And at some point, your hands relax and your fingers slowly stretch out straight too. It's as if your arms are feeling their way out into the space around you for the very first time. Number 6. Now gently tilt your head from side to side, still very slowly. First, dropping the right ear towards the right shoulder and then the left ear towards the left shoulder. You're experimenting with your body, feeling what it feels like to move it, exploring the air around you. Just as slowly you raise them, draw your arms back down, cross them around your legs again. Then, with the same curiosity, wonder, even as if you've never opened your eyes and sensed the world with vision before. Open your eyes, see the space around you as if it were an alien landscape. New, and in its newness, it's amazing. Every detail of it astounds you. You can move through these steps just once or repeat them 3, 4 times to lengthen and deepen the internal effects. The truth is, self healing is chaotic. Sure, there'll be minutes, days, weeks, even months when you'll feel a kind of joyful harmony and progress, and your progress will be obvious. But for much of the time, healing is icky. Sometimes it hurts because it has to. Be patient with your emotional wounds. I won't tell you what you should feel as you do this practice because everyone will feel something different. But regardless of whether the impact is obvious to you or not, the practice will almost immediately start to, number one, move and release energy. By moving as if for the very first time, you unstick and unblock the body, you move without the inhibitions you've picked up over your life so far. And instead explore and expand outward with pure sensing and pure curiosity. Number two, release tension. You imagine that your body is new to the world. So there's no tension to hold, and signals travel from your brain to every cell of your being, inspiring total release and relaxation. Number three, create physical space. You consider your body in a new way. For the duration of this practice, you wipe it clean. It becomes a blank state, and that new physical space will continue to expand as you move through this book, ready to be filled with new experiences and ideas that are to come. Use this exercise regularly, make it a part of your daily or weekly routine, and each time you do it, allow yourself to do it with curiosity. There's always more to discover. Beautiful. Let's go ahead a little bit. We are stretching today. I hope that's okay with everyone. All right, I can't see you all. If you want to log out, you may. We will live stream it on YouTube as well. Yeah, thank you. Chapter 3, what's your vibe? Working with the etheric body will change your vibration and create love and trust. Place your hand on your heart. Take a deep breath. How do you feel? What do you need today? Where's your head at? And on a scale of I feel terrible and I want to hide away to I feel alive and excited about the potential of my future. How is your energy flowing? Your vibration, your vibe is important. That's the energy that courses through you and that you radiate out into the world. And by extension, it's the same energy that you welcome back. What you give more or less equates to what you receive. So, getting familiar with your vibration is an important part of inner healing work. If you're hurting, you're more likely to attract people who are hurting. If you don't believe in your own worth, others won't treat you as if you are worthy to genuine love and respect. If your vibe is low, heavy, and dark, it will be difficult to draw toward you people and experiences that are vibrating higher and lighter and brighter. In my first book, Good Vibes, Good Life, I wrote a lot about vibrations. At the center of it all is the idea that loving yourself is the key to vibrating on a higher level and thus changing your life for the better. If you'd like to know more about manifesting that love for yourself and managing your vibration, I humbly recommend you to explore that book. It's full of practices that cultivate self love by caring for yourself, by meditating, eating well, drinking water, changing your body, language, experiencing the present moment, and more. Self care practices are essential to healing, and I'll expand on developing a self care routine later in the book. Nevertheless, it's important at this stage that you are engaged in things that you enjoy and that you make feel supported. Even if they are as simple as listening to music, going for walks in nature, speaking to a trusted friend, practicing yoga, or taking a bath. In this chapter, however, I want to focus specifically on how your vibration affects your relationships and how the vibe of the people you surround yourself can impact on your capacity for healing. Your vibration, your vibe is important. It's the energy that courses through you and that you radiate out into the world. And by extension, it's the same energy that you welcome back. The physical techniques we worked through in the previous chapter have already created space and time for you to start noticing where your vibration is at. And it's relatively simple to figure out whether you are vibrating high, low, or somewhere in the middle. If your vibration is high and tuned in with a powerful positive energy that courses through the universe, you just feel good. You feel confident. To others, it seems that you have a glow about you and that that success and light come to you easily. You wake up in the morning and feel alive with the potential of that day. Creativity flows, good ideas strike without much trouble, and you manifest the things you want most in your life. Essentially, things go well. And when they don't, you feel the force of resilience and trust that everything's happening as it should, and you'll soon be in a better, happier, stronger position. However, vibrating on a high level is more difficult when you have lots of baggage to work through. This doesn't mean you can't do it, only that it will take more effort. That effort is absolutely worth it, though, because when you can raise your vibration during your inner healing work, it becomes much easier to accept trauma, move through pain, and confront challenges with a kind of steadiness because you know that this will pass. You know deep in the core of your being that you are worthy of feeling better. So, how do you know if your vibration needs to be raised? Start with how you feel when you wake up in the morning and go from there. If you're struggling to see the light at the end of the tunnel and you are feeling generally low and slow and tired, then your vibration is probably suffering. You're tapping into the heaviness and darkness out there, and by doing so, you're inviting more heaviness and darkness in your life. Hold up. I promised I wouldn't ask you to suspend your disbelief while reading this book, and yet here I'm talking about tapping into the energy of the universe. I hear you. But whether you look at it from an esoteric perspective or you're a more determinedly grounded in science, the universe is made of energy. Quantum physics tells us this. We are made of energy. The earth, the star, and the stars are made of it, and we are a part of it. When we are born, we are given this vessel, this body, with which we can use, shift, and express our energy. So when it comes to getting to know your vibe and figuring out what your energy is up to, you don't have to become a super spiritual green smoothie guzzling type. Although, if you ask me, green smoothies are pretty good. Give them a chance. Think of it. Instead, as learning a new language, the language that will allow you to understand how you will live in the world and to change your energy so that your life can become happier and more fulfilling. Taking charge of your inner healing is one of the greatest acts of self love. By committing to yourself to this process, you're already lifting your vibration and creating a space to welcome more joyful experiences. The importance of positive relationships. Let's get on to relationships because they are an integral part of inner healing. If your relationships are positive and supportive, healing will happen faster and in a deeper, more sustainable way. However, if you're surrounded by people who bring you down, it will be much, much harder to lift yourself up. In one way or another, almost all the trauma we carry with us is associated with a person or people. It's not that trauma is always something that is done to us or caused by other people, although it often is, but that those we spend time with during or after a traumatic experience have an immeasurable effect on how we manage our emotional pain. The relationships we have at any given time can do one of these three things. Number one, inflict further damage or create a hole of a guilt, blame, and despair that convinces us we are going to be stuck forever. Number two, create a sense of emptiness, loneliness, or pointlessness. This is when a relationship doesn't do any harm, but it doesn't do any good either. Number three, lift us up and give us the confidence and motivation to confront our trauma and move through it with sense that we are held and supported. And this has much to do with the vibrations as it does with explicit action. If your vibe jars with the vibe of the people closest to you when you are going through something difficult or when you are working hard to heal, you feel that vibrational conflict in everything you try to do. What kind of people are you surrounded by right now? What kind of energy do you put out? Do they put out? Who have you tended to connect with over the years, and how have those connections affected you? And importantly, who was close to you when you went through a significant traumatic event in your life? I'm going to share the story of Malika, not her real name. She agreed to make her journey public in this book, but with the assurance that her identity would be protected. Therefore, I've been cautious when describing the specific details of her experience. Malika had a normal childhood and became a normal teenager with a normal family. They were supportive, she told me, but not particularly switched on when it came to trauma and recovery. Like many families, they had a resistance to accepting that anything bad could happen to them and preferred to sweep problems under the carpet rather than look their deepest fears straight in the eye. But all that wasn't much of an issue in Malika's life. She didn't have anything huge that she needed help with until she turned 15. Not long after her 15th birthday, Malika was violently raped by a stranger. She'd been at a party and had gone home on her own. Her parents and siblings were away for the weekend. Someone followed her there and then raped her. This violation would change Malika's perception of the world and of the other human beings for the rest of her life. After the rape, Malika didn't move for a day and a half. She lay on a rug on the ground floor of the house with a blanket from the sofa pulled over her and kept still. She said she might have drifted in and out of sleep during that time, but mostly she was acutely aware of being awake and being in pain and feeling utterly terrified. She didn't do anything because she didn't know if there was anything she could do. She was in a shock, and her thoughts had nothing to do with logic or regular awareness. I embodied fear, she said. It was what I was. I was just fear. Taking charge of your inner healing is one of the greatest acts of self love. By committing yourself to this process, you are already lifting your vibration and creating space to welcome more joyful experiences. When Malika's parents arrived home, that's how they found her on the floor, awake and in pain. She doesn't remember much about the weeks that followed, but she knows that in the first instance, her parents took her into the bathroom, watched her, and asked her what had happened. After she told them, they tucked her into the bed and left her alone. There was never any mention of going to the police, she said. That wasn't something I would have thought of, and I don't know why my parents didn't. It just wasn't something that anyone considered. Maybe they feared being judged if the story had gotten around. Maybe they just didn't know how to cope with it. Then, as the initial shock began to subside and the physical injury started to heal, Malika was able to begin the long and difficult process of healing emotionally from this highly traumatic event. She didn't tell anyone else about it, and nor did her parents, and they didn't talk about it together either, at least not explicitly. In their attempt to be supportive, they'd ask how I was and say things like, it's time you go out there. You need to learn that people aren't all bad. You need to get out, get into your head, and that the world isn't this dangerous place you think it is, Malaika recalled. And I just say nothing. I was deeply, deeply depressed and scared of everything. They were the only people I had for support, and I know they were trying in their own way. But it wasn't the kind of support I needed. I didn't need to be told to get on with things, and I really didn't need them to pretend nothing had happened. Not that I knew what I did need. I just I was hurting so much and I was ashamed. Of course, my parents were deeply concerned that I was becoming distant from the world and more withdrawn. They'd never been taught how to cope with this such a devastating situation. Malika spent the next decade on an emotional roller coaster. When she did eventually get back out there, she did so with the wrong people. She used drugs, alcohol, and bad relationships to numb her pain. And all the while, her family became increasingly frustrated by her failure to become the kind of daughter they'd assumed she'd be. At no point were her parents able to see that her behavior and her struggles were connected to the rape. They thought they'd given her everything she could possibly need in life and that she was throwing it back in their faces. Malika's parents inadvertently inflicted further damage on her. I am not trying to lay blame, but the story is a powerful way to illustrate how damaging a lack of appropriate empathetic support can be. If the people supporting Malika had known how to help her look at her trauma head on and accept the emotions she felt around it and support her patiently without pressure, well, her journey to healing would have been very different. There's no doubt about it. Luckily, she did find people who do that. When she was 26, she finally came to the conclusion completely on her own that she needed professional help. She started therapy, and then, when she felt strong enough, she embarked on a mind coaching process to build new, more positive habits into her life. And one of the important things that all this work enabled her to do was to surround herself with new people, to fill her life with those vibrations whose vibrations matched the person she wanted to be, the confidence she wanted to have, the freedom she wanted to feel, and the strength she already had inside of her. Her authentic self had become buried under the trauma she'd experienced and was waiting to be reclaimed. When something traumatic happens to you or near you, there's no going back to the way things were before. You can't pretend that because of who you are, the kind of childhood you had, or the kind of parents you have, or how much money you have, or whatever it is, that this kind of thing doesn't happen to people like you, and so it can't really have happened to you. This would be this would just be the powerful enforce of denial. That goes for all kind of trauma, not only dramatic, terrifying incidences, but also more subtle ones. So often I speak about people who say things like, I feel that my parents just preferred my brother to me. But that can't be true because that's not the kind of people they are. They wouldn't do that, so it must be my fault that I feel this way. Or I remember being really scared of my uncle, and I get this sinking, sick feeling in my stomach whenever I see his face. Even as an adult, he used to hit me, but he's a kind person, so he must have had a good reason. Or maybe I just made it all up. The things that have happened to you or and hurt you are not your fault. It's not your fault that you were born into the circumstances you were born into, or that someone chose to abuse their position in your life, or that you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The trauma isn't your fault. You may know this intellectually, but still have a hard time accepting in your gut. It's important to replace those negative beliefs with a positive affirmation, such as, I did the best I could and I'm safe now. You can't change your past, but you can choose to make your future lighter place. Here's the thing, it's your responsibility to heal yourself. And one way you can do it right now is to start doing what Malika did. Eventually, surround yourself with people who vibrate with the positive, beautiful power of universal energy. Give yourself permission to be lifted up instead of believing that you deserve to be dragged down. Beautiful. You can't change your past, but you can choose to make your future a lighter place. Here's the thing, it's your responsibility to heal yourself. Okay, we'll start with practice 3 in the next session.